good afternoon. Welcome to Daily Focus. I've had a full day and it has gotten away from me, but I wanted to spend a few minutes with you. I know it's later than normal, but I have had a very full morning dealing with media. Uh, Sometimes media gets a bad rap and sometimes they deserve it. But in situations like the tragedy that our church is going through, sometimes it's helpful for a grieving community to be able to know the person behind the name. And so it is a wonderful thing to watch the community come together and to be able to support the grieving process, both for family and church and the community. And the media kind of helps to facilitate and educate on the type of person that Turner was. And he was such a great kid, and we loved him dearly, and we'll miss him. But it's a tragedy, and I trust that you will pray for our family, our church family. Our The viewing will be tonight at our church, and then the funeral will be tomorrow. But I know the family will certainly appreciate you praying and upholding them before the throne of grace. And then as a church, as we minister and grieve ourselves, that we would embrace your prayers and support, as well as the fact that we want God to be able to use this as a means for us to share Christ with our community. Ultimately, God placed us in this community to be salt and light, specifically to show the gospel. And so we're praying that that will be accomplished even through this tragedy. Well, in Daniel chapter 8, I've entitled this that history is described. And Daniel starts this chapter, and he's referencing the fact that even though it's 2 years later for this second vision, it's linked to the first one. And he acknowledges that in the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. In other words, these are very connected. And so he's going to describe what happens a little bit different. He's going to use animals. And he says, Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had two horns, and the two horns were high, but the one was higher than the other. And that's the Medo-Persian Empire. In other words, the Persian part of the Medo-Persian was the stronger segment, and so the higher of the two horns. And so this ram with two horns is pictured as the Medo-Persian Empire. And the ram, expands its power and its impact and influence and control over the whole world. And as I was considering, behold, a he goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. In other words, this he goat comes on the scene. It's a picture of the speed and the strategy of Alexander the Great with the Grecian army. I don't remember from history the exact name of the wars, but there was a battle that took place. Alexander came down, I think, with like 35,000 men against 100 and some thousand Medo Persians, but he crossed the river and killed like 20,000 Medo Persians to losing 100 of his own. And was just a devastating loss for the Medo Persian Empire. And then war upon war, Alexander was a brilliant military leader and was able to conquer. And then once he became a world power, so it says in verse number 6, and he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing at the river, and ran unto him in a fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him. That's just a old English term that means bitter anger. In other words, ferocious anger against him, and smote the ram and brake his two horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. And this is when Alexander the Great and the Grecian army becomes the world power. And then it's going to explain that as the Grecian army gets powerful in verse number 8, waxed very great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. And this was the undoing, the beginning of the undoing of the Grecian empire, is when they really began to divide in and of themselves. Boy, if there is not another warning to America like history, this history lesson ought to tell us that the way many empires are destroyed are not from an antagonistic opposing force, but because they disintegrate and divide from within. And that's exactly what happened to the Grecians, and it was foretold here. And so, as it is unwinding, I think that I'm going to wait and deal with tomorrow, Lord willing, the specifics as it relates to what happened to the Grecian. And Antiochus Epiphanes comes out of that and is really a picture, a forerunner, if you will, to what is going to the Antichrist is going to look like, what he's going to function like. It's almost like a prophecy, a foretelling, a little glimpse of what it was going to look like. And we see how he wreaks havoc within the Grecian Empire. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I want to draw your attention to verse number 19 as Daniel is interacting with the angels, and he says unto Daniel, behold, I make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. And I'm just reminded that God is writing history. He's not interfering with the decisions of man, but he knows the decisions of man, and he is writing history. He is allowing it to unfold exactly according to his plan, and the end will happen right on time. And so I'm encouraged as we reminisce through what we now call history that was at the time of writing prophecy. And I'm encouraged to watch how God has unfolded things absolutely the way that they were foretold. And I know that's exactly the way it's going to happen in the future. Things are unfolding right on time. I just read that Sweden joined NATO, and I'm sure that's going to get Russia's attention, and it'll be interesting to see how they respond. But we're watching this one world order be put in order and put together, and many people don't know their Bible, and they're not able to trace the prophetic strings that are coming together and being woven together in a timely fashion, maybe can't really see that God is at work allowing man to make his decisions, but the decisions he knew that he would make, and the timeline is coming together, and the end will happen right on time at an appointed time. We don't have to fret about it. We don't have to worry about it. All we have to do is trust and obey, live in light of faith in our great God who loves us, who we are in Christ, and we will forever be that way, and we can faithfully serve him. I hope that encourages your heart. We'll look at this a little bit more detail. I know this is a little weightier, heavier stuff, but it'll make more sense as we get through. But I want to describe the text as we go through it. I hope it's a help to you. God bless you. I'll see you again tomorrow.